Happy Good Friday, everybody.
Yeah, it's cold in here.
It's not a cold in here. It's hotter than that. Well, it's Good Friday, so, go down before you go up, I guess.
There you go. Whoa.
So, yeah, no, it's, the heat, the air conditioning is not kicked on yet, but our friends are working on that, thank goodness. So
if you see us
appreciate that.
sweating bullets,
Yes,
that's
that's
It's
why.
getting
Why?
hot in here.
Yeah, it's, not
I've
because
already
of what we're
taken off
talking about. but-
half my clothes.
Yeah. It's just
And you
not
came
good.
in a sweatshirt, and I'm like, oh, you. Ooh.
You know what though? When it's 90 degrees outside, if a swift breeze blows through, I'm like, "Brr." So I'm comfortable really in any situation, I think, as far as temperature is concerned.
But before we get into some Easter and other talk, of course, one of the big topics this week that affects a lot of people in town is the proposal for the sports complex, which sort of got unveiled this week. Mayor Mike Trope on his way out the door looking to get a little conversation started, apparently, and David covered that meeting, and there was certainly some conversation, and basically everybody sure has their own opinions and ideas of what it should be.
Did he start that conversation, or did we start that on Coffee Talk? I'm just kidding.
I mean-
it's
Well,
been
we
started
definitely-
for years.
Yeah.
We've talked about
We
that.
definitely have stirred that conversation quite a few times.
It was a discussion in the mayoral election 4 years ago.
Yeah.
I know that it was something that Paul Havermill talked about. It was something that Dan Brink had talked about. So, and now we had some people come in. I think that I know some feasibility studies might be in the works or what have you to try to determine what it should be. I think I talked about this a little earlier today on the morning show. Was the fact that look, this should have been done a long time ago. You've got a lot of these communities that have already built these things up. You've got Springfield building an $80 million complex. The Oakley-Lindsay Center, which is now landlocked, ideally, had it been built properly with everything it needed and bigger, but of course they went cheap on that. They could have made this into that, but it's
Coulda,
really
shoulda,
tough for
woulda.
that. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
what are we doing now?
You got $30 million that you're bored with?
No, I don't. But I've heard
So-
heard your take
Yeah.
from it, and we mentioned this on the morning show earlier too. The mayor-elect has said, I don't like it.
Yeah.
I crunched the numbers. I don't like it. I talked to our good friend Adam Booth. He said the same thing. Like, I crunched these numbers. I wonder how many people are crunching numbers. I saw your comment where you're like, I kind of was playing with these numbers, and it doesn't.
Well, I think it just, the guy, Arco, who I don't really know enough about, I'm not sure where he was sourced or what kind of the reason for bringing this fella in, but he shot for the moon saying that we needed this many volleyball courts and this many basketball courts and this, and it's like, well, every complex I've been to has multifunctional spaces. So the one in Bettendorf, they have basketball and volleyball in one area, and the basketball hoops are either on hydraulics where they come up and come down, depending on what season or what the needs are. And then even QU has a multifunctional court. They have like the holes in the ground that you can set the volleyball nets up, or the pickleball, or the any kind of net that you need, but it's multifunctional. So to say that we need this giant space that's going to be $50 million, I just think it really is an easy way to turn people off of it. So rather than shoot for the moon and have everybody just shoot it down all of a sudden because nobody wants to put the money in or nobody wants Quincy to support that kind of thing, I think we need a reasonable expectation to start, and then maybe some real designs with real quotes and real feasibility studies, rather than just tossing these numbers out arbitrarily and having people immediately have this gut reaction to it.
Do you have to, like when she says like tossing out these numbers and stuff like that, would they have to agree to something before they put like these feasibility studies into place, or is that?
I think that really what you should look at is, what have we done with the riverfront? We put a committee together. Should we have a sports complex committee like we have the riverfront committee? Is that something that Mayor-elect Moore should consider putting together? Maybe that's...
Well, I see the success in the Riverfront Committee, so I don't think that would be the answer.
I think lack thereof was
Well,
what you're going for.
I
there.
think there are a lot of people.
But I think more
more people would back the sports complex.
No question.
Yeah, because it's revenue now.
Yeah.
If we can get something going, even on a small scale, you can do. I think you can do. It's kind of like we're doing a website for, John Henry Foster, and you do it in phases. Of course, you have this huge wish list, but start relatively small, but do it in a way that you can scale it as you grow and get revenue. Right?
I think our guest coming up would be able to talk about that a little bit.
Yeah.
I think she has some experience with that about, growing something, making
Right.
something successful by starting out small and then growing it to be what it is.
Right.
So
Yeah.
I look forward to hearing from her for that. But before that, I want to hear what you guys' Easter plans are, because I have some big ones.
You do?
Yeah, yours first.
Okay. Ours is going to be pretty special, pretty low key. My niece is coming to stay with us the whole weekend. So we generally keep it pretty tame, I think. But we're going to do dye Easter eggs, I think Saturday-ish. And then Sunday we'll wake up with my niece and my girls.
Are you
and
dyeing real eggs with those prices?
We are. I'll go without electricity before I have some janky egg hunt on Easter. Listen, it's been a tradition for as long as I can remember, going to my grandma's house and getting egg dye all over, and wondering if we got all the eggs, because my cat's inevitably she's gonna bring one out, months down the line, and we're gonna be like, oh
and
God.
then poop purple.
Yeah. Yep. But yeah, I think it's worth the.
I do real eggs too. How about you? What do you?
$32.
Well, see, last night would have been Holy Thursday Mass. Friday would be Good Friday service, not a Mass. It's not a Mass. Do you know that? It's a service.
I did not
don't know the
that.
difference.
Why?
You don't receive the Eucharist.
Oh, really?
Okay.
So, and then I'm not doing the Easter Vigil because I don't have anybody who's going into the church. Whenever I have friends or something who have to go into the church, we'll go to the Easter Vigil on Saturday night, which is very, very long. So we're not doing that this year. We're just going to hit the morning, and then we will head to beautiful Perry, Missouri.
You're so
to see
dedicated.
Jimmy
Yeah.
and Sharon.
Hey, what's
So,
Maundy? Maundy Thursday?
Maundy, yeah, Holy Thursday, Maundy
Yeah.
Thursday. Yeah.
So my mother
it's
and
the day,
I.
It's the day of the Last Supper.
My mother-in-law and I used to go to Vermont Street for that, and it was always such a beautiful,
Yeah.
I guess, service?
Service?
Not a
Mass?
Not a service? I don't
No,
know.
that would have been service.
Service. But it was always really cool, even though I'm not super religious. But we are going to do church with my niece. That's another reason she's coming. And then, yeah, we'll go to my Luke's grandma's and celebrate with his family. So I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, so yeah, I mean, this will be the first time, Mom and Dad got back from Florida about a month ago, so this will be the first time we've been over there. They've been over here a couple of times, but so we'll be over there for that. So
What are your plans?
Well,
Besides
I
the
am
baked
so
ham.
excited about my baked ham.
ham.
But no, it's not going to be baked ham. It's
Baked
regular ham. But the fact of the matter is, we always usually go to different local places for dinner. It's just easier for my grandparents, if you will. But this year, we're all bringing stuff over to my grandma's, which I really like. Instead
You
of
bringing
being
the brownies?
Well, no, I'm actually bringing the baked ham. It's just not going to be.
Okay.
It's
Baked?
not going to be baked. But I do plan
Bring it
on
baked.
maybe bringing some legal
Yes.
course
edibles
it's legal.
that I've purchased from probably even the Illinois side just to support my state. Yeah, I'll go ahead and pay the extra 30% tax.
Yeah. Ouch.
yeah,
But that way-
check out when West Quincy opens and talk to me then, girl.
If I'm still supporting Illinois,
Because it's going to be right there.
It'll go back and forth.
Right there.
I already go to Hannibal half
Yeah,
the
yeah,
time.
yeah.
So, but I plan on, maybe bringing in some chocolates to my family because it is legal. And usually we sit around and we drink. And I just personally think that the edible marijuana route might be a better situation, especially for some of the older
100%.
members of my family. However, there's just a stigma on it. It will forever be on it for those people. And I understand because it's kind of just put into you and
Yeah.
you can't get it out.
Taboo.
However, I was one to never let the taboo get a hold of me, if you will. I've always kind of been pretty loud and proud because of the fact that I have always used it medicinally as opposed to some pill that, I was prescribed, and I think I've talked about this before, I was prescribed a pill for my nausea, and it turned me into Anna Nicole Smith. I was like, hey, guys.
Oh, no.
What's going on? But, if I use reasonable amounts of cannabis, I am pretty high functioning. I mean, I know I lose my train of thought half the time when I'm talking to you guys.
Yeah.
But I still feel like I am with it and whatnot. I use responsibly and am proud of that. I'm also proud of the fact, and my parents are not so proud of the fact that I went to the first ever cannabis cup.
Yeah, I can't wait to hear about this.
So real quick, 420. Just a
Easter.
background real quick. It's Easter, but the holiday of 420 is also a holiday for all people that love cannabis. It's cannabis lovers. The reason why, there are lots of, what do they call them?
Like theories.
Yeah,
of where it
theories.
came from.
I was going to call them, I don't know what they say, stoner stories.
I was going to say a high man's truth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Of where or why it derived. But 420, the story that I'm going with is from the high school students in California. They named themselves the Waldos.
I've heard this.
There are still members of them living today claiming that fame for always and saying that they just got together around the time of 420 in the bleachers and shared their love of cannabis together. So the holiday is looked at actually worldwide as a love of cannabis and as a proclamation to legalize it federally, especially in the U.S. Again, it's celebrated worldwide. The Cannabis Cup always happened in Amsterdam.
Yeah.
The first time it happened in the USA was, I believe, in 2013. And again, I mean, it's still not federally legal, but Colorado was one of the first states.
Yes.
I made my way out there and may have said I was going somewhere else, but I went out there with a friend and we experienced the Cannabis Cup, and I got to later experience Red Rocks.
Cool.
An amazing place. I got to see Cypress Hill as I'm walking
Ooh.
up. So I'm walking up just 40 flights of stairs after going to the Cannabis Cup, if you will. So
Yeah, you need lots of water.
very walking slowly. And as I'm walking up there, Cypress Hill is playing Insane in the Membrane.
Oh, awesome.
Insane in the Brain. And then we went to see Slightly Stupid. I don't know if you guys
love
know.
Slightly Stupid.
I love Slightly Stupid
Oh
too.
my
Do you know
gosh,
who
my
Slightly
husband and I
Stupid
love
I
is?
don't know who Slightly
Well,
Stupid
I
is.
will plan on playing that for
Yeah.
you all day tomorrow to
Sweet
prep
honey.
for
Yay.
our 420 celebration.
Yay.
But yeah, 420 is, if you will, some people call it, you know, like it's just for the stoners, but I think it's also for a good cause. Like I said, the acceptance, if you will, of something so natural that has so many purposes outside of just getting your rocks off, if you will,
Yeah.
while I sip my beer.
Right.
To each their own.
Yeah, to each their own.
Absolutely.
But I do think, alcohol is widely accepted and it's very, very dangerous. So it's just whoever's
I'm gonna have a beer on Easter, sure. What the heck?
whoever's kind of pushing the
Oh, I'm gonna have
pushing
both.
it. Yeah.
I like to really celebrate
She
my
likes to
spring
spread the wealth.
holiday.
Spread the wealth, especially when family's around. And maybe you won't have such intense conversations about politics, but you will maybe
Not
talk
if
about
I
the
not if I
trees
get
and such.
everyone to eat one of these candy
There you
bars.
go.
Yeah, that won't happen.
Yeah.
There will be no political discussion.
Yeah.
Well, Alex even won't be home,
Oh.
but just will be Scott. But no, if Ellen has a strict no politics rule whenever Alex is home anyway. So
That's a good idea.
She is a smart woman.
Yeah,
Yes, she is.
And we're going to hear from another smart woman here shortly.
Yeah.
All right, we'll be
absolutely.
right back.
That was fun.
Also, I go to
The Liquor Booth is your home for a huge selection of beer, wine, and spirits. The Liquor Booth has 2 locations in Quincy, 3520 Broadway and 1500 North 12th Street. The Liquor Booth, where it's always happy hour.
What have you been missing on Muddy River Gems? You won't believe your eyes. My crew and I have been bringing you stories for more than 20 years on PBS and now Muddy River News. And we're just getting started.
Hello.
Oh, hi.
Oh, hi. Here we
started.
are. Welcome,
starting.
Miss Sarah Deien. How are you?
I'm great, thank you.
Good. So I think the last time you were here, I was not. So I'm really excited to talk with you about some things. Number one, Tracy Foundation, right?
Right, Riedel.
Sorry, start over.
Start over.
I said that earlier.
Jesus
I'm
H.
like, Radel.
Riedel.
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 all the time, but I really like it.
Oh, Riedel. All right. Well, you kick it off because I feel like I just pulled that right out of my Obviously.
Tracy Foundation, also fabulous.
They're doing great. They're great stuff too.
Love Tracy Foundation.
No, leaving it open's better. Makes it cooler. We get a little bit of Believe it
Okay,
or not.
are we
So.
ready now? Okay. And take two. Hi, Miss Sarah Deien. How are you?
I'm great, thank you.
Good.
to be
So
here.
last time you were here, I did not have the pleasure of sitting down and speaking with you, but you were here talking to Bob and Brittany. It was a great conversation. I'm sure we're going to have another one. Let's kick it off with what you are a huge part of, and I think it's the last thing you and I spoke about, and that is the Riedel Foundation.
Yeah, the Riedel Foundation.
Yeah. So what is it? I know a lot of people probably know. It's based out of.
And we're based out of Hannibal.
Okay.
We're a nonprofit foundation that gives to nonprofit foundations.
Okay.
Okay. So we just celebrated, this is our 25th year.
Woohoo!
Yeah, it's kind of a big deal.
That's a huge deal.
And so we only give money to nonprofits that benefit Hannibal residents specifically. That's a term of the trust. It's hard and fast rule. So in 25 years, we've given away roughly $7.5 million
Holy shit.
to Hannibal.
It's real money.
That is real money.
Yeah.
Now, all of this money comes from the trust, or people are
Came from the
constantly
trust.
giving, or
No,
how does it work?
We don't take money.
That's what I
we just give
thought.
money.
You
I
just
know.
give money.
I know. I have the best job.
Yeah.
I don't have to raise any money
Nice.
ever.
Yeah.
I just facilitate giving money. You know,
Yeah.
we have trustees who make the decisions. I just kind of present the applications. But yeah, $7.5 million.
That is a
in the
lot
last
of
25
money.
years.
How many
Yeah.
applications do you get annually, ballpark?
Well, the number has grown as we've kind of tried to grow the awareness, but there's still a limited number of nonprofits in Hannibal, right?
Right.
So, and they're not afraid to say no. They're not a rubber stamper. But I'm gonna say 40, 45 applications maybe. We usually between 25 and 30 that are approved
In a year? Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah.
And then do they just reach out to you? See, this kind of stuff, because I know like grant writing and you have to like prove your case and stuff like that. Is that kind of the same
It is
process?
We make it as simple as possible
Okay.
on a really easy scale, because if you've done like real grant applications, they are pages and pages.
Yes.
We just
Nightmare.
basically say, so what do you want to do? Why do you want to do it? Tell me, who are you? What kind of, what do you generally do as a nonprofit? Of course, we're familiar with pretty much all of them as it is. So we don't get a lot of new things coming in the door. We did last year. I had 4 new groups that had never applied before.
Oh, really? With
And
brand
that
new concepts? Okay.
Well,
Or-
yeah, or new kind of programs or projects.
Okay.
So it's not unheard of that we get new stuff, but there is just a limited number of nonprofits
Sure.
Right.
in Hannibal.
Yeah.
It's not like they have to be based in Hannibal, but the project that they're doing serves only Hannibal.
Gotcha.
So we just approved one last week. I sent out a news release just today. Shoes from the Heart, and we've given to them before, but they're based out of Macon. They provide shoes, footwear to kids who don't have appropriate footwear. So
Okay.
like there was a kid at one of the elementary schools. He was coming to school every day in a pair of worn out snow boots because he didn't have shoes.
Yeah.
So they stock shoe closets.
That's a great idea.
Yeah, and so we paid for stocking shoe closets in the Hannibal elementary schools.
I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah, because there's so many cases. There's so many kids out there who they go to a school and they don't have a coat or they don't have shoes. It's sad and it happens every day.
Yeah.
And you don't see how some of these kids get to school
Right.
the way they're dressed.
Right.
Yeah.
It's just awful.
So then when you're looking at these, I'll call them applications. Is
That's
what
the
it
right
is?
word.
Okay, okay.
Yeah, they're
So when you're looking
applications.
at the application and you're seeing like the shoes for the kids, and maybe you have another one that's like, let's say coats for kids, or you have
Yeah,
something
we do
that kind
those
of
too.
falls in line. Do you ever connect the dots for them, or is it just keeping them separate, or how does that work? Like if you have two that kind of align, are they ever encouraged to kind of merge and do one
Absolutely.
project?
Yes,
Okay.
absolutely. We had a new group a couple of years ago, Faith Bridge, and they serve foster kids. Okay. Well, there's a lot of groups that serve foster kids locally. I mean, there's just a lot of them. And we said, okay, so what have you connected? Because they're based out of Moberly. Have you connected with the ones in town? Like, no, not. Well, I guess we haven't. But what they're doing is different.
Right.
From what they're helping kids who are aging out of the foster care
Oh,
system and
okay.
setting them up with everything they need to start their own apartment, for
Right.
instance. So
Great idea.
they're taking it in a different direction because we don't want to overlap services,
Right.
you know, especially when we're having a new group come in that, you know, we already have an existing group in town.
Sure.
You know, we don't want to step on toes.
Right, you don't want them competing
Yeah,
for funds.
definitely not.
Right, yeah. I think that's so interesting because there are so many needs. Now, this question might be a tough one, but I am just curious. Have you thought of something that hasn't been, like, have you thought of something in Hannibal that maybe no one's come to you about that you wish somebody would be like, I wish this is a need? And is that a tough question for you to ask? Because I don't want to put you in a bad spot, but, or like encouraging someone to do something that maybe you see a need that no one's really thought of addressing yet.
I don't know. I think
No?
it seems to me like we know the need, we've identified the needs.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's finding the way to address those needs properly.
Through an organization or an individual.
And then, and sometimes the money that they want is not the money we want to give. So they
Gotcha.
might need a vehicle for their organization. We don't want to buy vehicles.
Yeah,
That's not
sure.
what we want to do. You know,
Yeah.
we want to be the boots on. You know, we want
Yeah.
to
Sure.
supply the boots,
Yeah, yeah,
not the
yeah.
vehicles
Yeah.
to get the boots out.
Right. No
Right.
kidding.
You know,
Yeah, no kidding.
so
Absolutely.
there are things, and then I might come back to them and say, think of a way that we can do this because we're not going to buy your office equipment. I know you need an office, but that's not what we're going to do. So
Sure.
let's find a different way to make this happen.
That makes
you
sense,
know?
yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting.
I think the needs are only going to get, just with the current atmosphere, right? Where I think there's going to be less government funding for the poor. And I think organizations like ours, foundations like ours, are going to be even more vital
Yeah.
in the coming years.
Yeah,
Because
well,
there's
everything's
not-
getting more and more expensive.
It
and
is.
It almost seems like the barriers to entry to these non-for-profits is getting harder as well, right? They're becoming more and more prevalent.
Yep.
So yeah, groups like yours and other ones that we know that give, you know, so readily and so amazingly to our communities, that you're going to have your hands full.
Yeah.
It's incredible to me that you're able to pick these different ones and not. I don't know if
Yeah.
I'd be able to do that.
Well, a lot of it now, it seems like we have to focus a lot on just basic needs.
Yeah.
You know, food, housing,
Right.
that kind of thing. You
Right.
know, clothing, shelter, that's the basic needs.
Yeah.
I think it's going to be even more important.
Definitely.
Yeah, I think Ashley's right. I think a lot of these, especially the ones that are like quasi-governmental, like, you know, Two Rivers on this side of the river
Right.
and whatever the Two Rivers equivalent over there, whether it's NECAC, what
NECAC.
have you, I think they're the ones that are really going to suffer.
Yeah.
I think they're the ones that are going to
Well,
see
and
the
when
purse
they
strings
suffer,
tighten.
the poor suffer.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no doubt about it.
And that's where, you know, hopefully we're going to be able to step in and pick up some of that slack. But, you know, we have a finite
Sure.
number of resources ourselves.
Right.
Sure.
You know?
Yeah.
So,
So Hannibal, I always look to, I may get shit for this, but I look to you guys because you do so much stuff right. That I think that we could do some of it if we had started out maybe a different, you know, going down a different path. But your riverfront, of course, is booming. We were talking about Java Jive earlier, and the fact that they pretty much don't need advertising because they're always busy. And I think another reason they don't is because when you, and I'm talking Hannibal, have events, it seems like all of the local businesses kind of come together to help pull those off. So you are, just by being in kind of in that family of small businesses in Hannibal, you're included. You're in the mix of these events, and it seems like you guys work really, really well. And this is not a dig on Quincy, because I know a lot of businesses, especially downtown, work really well together to pull off different events. But you guys in Hannibal seem to do you do a lot of things really, really well. One of the questions I had, because we've heard a lot in Quincy about housing issues, right? We've heard a lot about homelessness increasing, whether it's due to housing or mental health, or do you guys see those things in Hannibal as part of what you do?
Yeah, absolutely. Although, like, I helped out when we had that horrible cold snap,
Yeah.
right? And so we had a temporary shelter, and that was intended just for the homeless. They had about a dozen people,
Yeah.
okay, that are the people that you stereotypically think of as homeless, like
Right.
sleeping in the elements. But there are degrees of homelessness, and so, you know, the mattress surfer types, they don't have a home, but they're able to to pop from place to place, sleep on a couch somewhere.
Gotcha.
You know what I mean?
Uh-huh.
But yeah, absolutely, we have that. And it is true when they say so many people are one paycheck away.
Yeah.
You know.
Oh, yeah,
from
100%.
From homelessness.
Yeah.
And again, I just see that problem growing.
Yeah, absolutely. I was just curious.
Let's switch gears a little bit.
Yes,
I wanna
okay,
talk about
sorry,
some,
yeah.
I want to talk about
I
some
could talk about this
I want to
forever.
talk about some media stuff. Of course, our friend Jeff
Ooh,
Dorsey was
yeah.
here last week.
Yes.
Did you listen?
I haven't yet.
Oh, good.
I know, I know. Oh no. You know, and I
good.
saw it on the. I had lunch with him last week, and he told me that he was going to do it, and then I gave up Facebook for Lent.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So I might hop on there on a Sunday because Sundays don't count towards Lent.
That's right.
So.
Catholicism, the religion of convenience.
So anyway, I haven't been able to watch it but I
Sure.
don't know. I should be able.
But one of the things we talked about
Yes.
was, what happened with you guys and what that company did and what we see is happening where we both worked at KHQA and what's happening there. And we talked about earlier about it's just not the same when you have these big companies just come in and gobble up
Right.
in town,
No,
and
it's
just, I know you're watching it, and I know you still have friends that work there,
Yes.
and so do I, and it's just so rough to watch it and what they're trying to put together. It's like, okay, let's just try to cram all this shit into one thing from all over and try to do this, and it's just not working.
It's not working.
Is this KHQA we're talking
Yes.
about? Okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
Was I not supposed to holler? Or did you call that out already? I didn't
No,
hear
it's
you.
fine.
Okay, I just
No,
wanted
it's
to make
okay.
sure I understand.
No.
Okay.
I think I
It's
said
not
it.
news.
I think,
Okay,
okay,
that's
no.
not news to
no,
you
no,
Okay,
no,
right,
no, we
okay.
know. Yeah.
And John Garlock, who's
Right. You guys were in college together,
yes,
right?
I love John. He is like
Yeah.
John is the anchor of KHQA/KTVO, and he's just a fabulous guy. I love him, but it is, whew, man, and part of it's just you and I both. We're old school, right? I know you're doing this new media thing.
Yeah.
You've done a great job adapting. I am slower on the uptake. It's hard.
Yeah.
It's hard to watch.
Well, again, and I think when we did it, it was when we started. We'll have our 4th birthday coming up here at the end of this month, and it was we didn't want to just do the newspaper on the internet. We wanted
Right.
to do the video, do the podcast, the stuff like we're doing right now, and do different stuff. And again, I think the whole thing was also to get the local buy-in, to get all the advertisers to support this, because we also were pretty sure nobody wanted to pay for it because you got 85 apps already you're paying for with Netflix
Right.
or Max or
Yeah.
whatever, and it's
Yeah.
like, oh, we want another $4.99 a month out of you or whatever, and it's no, we don't want to do that. So because the ones with the paywalls are also suffering,
Yeah.
and so I think in what we've tried to do is just stay, report all the local stuff. Try, some national stuff creeps in from time to time,
Sure.
and we have to do that. But really, just to still focus on the local stuff because, and not try to get in all the clickbaity crap that we see a lot of the others do.
Yeah.
And it's
Yeah.
like, that's just really annoying. So we have enough
It is.
local clickbait here. It's fine. We don't need it. We don't need
Yeah.
national or
We got
regional
enough
clickbait.
tea going on.
So-
I despise when I go on to, other news sites and I see things that obviously are agenda pushing. It's like things about, school shootings that happened in Texas, which yes, it's news, but it's not Quincy news.
Yeah.
And it shouldn't be front and center if there's something going on in Quincy that deserves, a little real estate there as well. So it's interesting to see how it's kind of gone by the wayside.
And I know the old adage, it bleeds, it leads. That's great. But we still try to do a lot of good stories. I mean, the stuff you guys send us, that's fantastic. And it's great. And you guys, and again, on this side of the river, it's the Community Foundation or the Tracy Foundation, United Way. Ashley was the People's Choice winner in the United Way event last Saturday.
Yes.
So yeah, doing stuff like that. We want to cover that. That's good stuff. So we can balance it out a little bit. So
I think that's necessary.
it is.
Absolutely.
It is.
Because people are it's so gloom and doom everywhere you look, and it's almost like the more you perpetuate that, the more it perpetuates. I mean, it's like that. I don't know if it's like Pygmalion or what it is, like self-fulfilling prophecy. If all you're doing is talking about how bad things are, that's all people are going to see.
Yeah,
And that's
right.
how you act, and that's how your attitude is. The more good you kind of mix in there to show we're all human.
Right.
We can all adapt and overcome, right? So I think Muddy River News does that well. I think also another thing we do really well that we listen to people and we bring really cool people on to have conversations about things that we may not know a lot about, right?
Well, and the other thing that you do really well is you don't avoid the controversy.
Yeah.
And that's hard when you're living in the place and it's small.
Yes.
And you're living in the place that you're covering and you have to take up those hard topics.
Yeah.
And I I mean, I always hated that. Like if I had to go to Monroe City and do a controversial story, I mean, can you send somebody else?
Yeah, I don't
This
do
is
that.
too close to home for me.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
And that's hard, but you guys don't avoid that, and that's good. I mean,
Yeah.
that's what journalism has to be.
I didn't want
right?
to turn this into a pat on the back for Muddy River News.
But
By all means.
I was like,
you did.
By all
I was like,
means,
well,
go
we
ahead.
definitely went down
Don't care.
this road, but yeah, I enjoy it.
Y'all do good stuff.
Thanks,
You're
yeah.
doing good
Well,
stuff.
speaking
I
of
tell you
that,
all the time.
you do. Speaking of that, yeah, your city council's a lot of fun right now.
Oh, God.
I wondered if that's where you were going before when you were like, let's switch.
Did I tell you
let's
the
switch
city
topics.
council?
She loves these
She doesn't want to do that.
topics.
She's
I
trying to just
wrote-
give money.
I wrote a proclamation for us and
Nice.
sent it to the mayor's office and said, how about you proclaim us, do a proclamation for us since we're celebrating 25
Yeah.
years
Yes.
of the Riedel Foundation. So I got to go to the
Yeah.
city council meeting and then I had to sit through all the, stuff beforehand.
The fun stuff.
The drama.
The drama.
Okay, so can you give me some back? So we don't have to delve really deep in, but I know April. is that-
April Azatay and Tammy Riley in the
Okay, I
second
don't know
ward
Tammy.
runoff.
I've met April a few times. She seems very dedicated to her passion, which right now happens to be being on the city council, right?
Trying to get there, yeah.
I don't know Tammy very well. I also don't know the controversy enough to speak on
Right
it.
now,
but
both sides are going. But
does it
a lot of
don't know.
it has been. I mean,
Yeah.
a lot of like mudslinging? I guess what I read, and correct me if I'm wrong, and if we don't want to talk about this, we don't have to. But what I read was that something came up that. Well, really, the full feeling that I get is that the city council doesn't really appreciate April showing up, right, and
Well,
talking. Maybe not
yeah.
all of them, but some of them.
No, right,
They just don't really like to hear
Yeah.
what she has to say, which I think is number one.
wrong.
It's
when
breaking
you're a
the
public
rules.
official, you
Yeah.
sit there and you listen
It's
to your
kinda breaking the
constituents.
rules,
That's
yeah.
what you do.
And then the other is that it's been kind of mudslingy. So when her license or whatever, I don't even know all the things, the ins and outs, it was kind of brought to her attention in my opinion, a shitty way, in front of people that she didn't really know about it, but she corrected the situation.
They ambushed her at an event.
And now
yeah.
it's still getting thrown in her face.
Yeah,
I don't know.
they're just keep
What's
going over other stuff. It's awful. It's like, let's talk about, we talked
The
to both.
issues at hand.
We talked to both of them, and I think the one thing that I've tried to stress is, could we please just talk about the future? Same with this race, because our local mayor's race got nasty too.
Yeah.
Could we just please talk about what your vision is for the future of the city?
Yeah.
That's all we want.
Right.
Everybody
How you gonna
wants
make things
hope.
better? How you gonna pay for stuff? How you gonna fix the roads? How you gonna get the trash? All that stuff. That's all we want.
Yeah.
This other stuff doesn't matter.
I think that you see that. I mean, not just locally, but nationally.
No, I
Whether-
think it's a trickle down from the
It is.
national.
Yeah.
It is. Let's stop the name calling and the mudslinging and let's talk about the issues and let's put together viable solutions.
Yeah.
Solutions that we
Yes.
can. Oh gosh, the whole working across the aisle thing, on a national level, on a state level, on a local level is just dead. And
Yeah.
why?
Yeah.
Why? Because there's so much more common ground than we give ourselves credit for. We
Yeah.
don't want to find it because we're too busy being mad.
Right.
Because
everybody wants to be
everybody-
right.
and plus everybody gets their own information from their own sources, and they stay in their silos. And it used to be you had maybe 20% on each side, and you had this big 60. Now it seems like we got 40% on each side, and there's like this little bitty group in the middle, and
But
it's
I
sad.
think it's also because the people on each side. So I look at it kind of like 5 sections. So you have the extremes on both sides. Then you have kind of so you have extreme left, extreme right. Then you have right and left. Then you have the middle, and these people tend to be the loudest. So these people try to kind of appease the extreme because they're the loudest. So they want to be agreeable.
Right. They
right?
suck the oxygen out of the room.
Yes.
And the middle has
and
no
I
voice.
don't think that they represent a big enough piece of the pie to be quite so loud, but people have misinterpreted loud for numbers, right?
Ah.
Yeah. So
right,
I think if
completely.
you stick to your guns and you talk about the issues and you talk about your solutions, or even acknowledge that there are problems and be willing to work with people on different solutions and be open-minded, that's how you win things, right? So why what was the reason because of the it wasn't a tie, the election?
Runoff.
Was around.
What's that?
It's coming up.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah,
next
but-
Tuesday.
Okay.
Next Tuesday.
So that means that there wasn't a big enough swing.
Nobody had 50%.
Gotcha.
So
Okay.
that's what they did. So,
Gotcha.
and so that's why they got the runoff. The number 3 guy's out, and it's down to Tammy Riley and April Azate. So your dad was a state rep
Yeah.
and also county assessor.
He was a county assessor. He was a
Okay.
county commissioner.
So yeah, so you've been involved with this in a long time, and because I know you helped out with some of your dad's campaigns and
Yeah.
stuff too back in the day. So did you ever think about running?
I was just going to ask
have
that.
been asked. Why would you?
I know.
I mean, it.
I know.
Well, I think like in the time that Dad was doing it, it was a servant's heart
Yeah.
more than it was.
Yeah.
Now you don't find a servant's heart in politics. You find, I mean, I shouldn't say that. There are people, there are exceptions, but sometimes the motivations people have for running, I think, are, it's more self-serving.
Right.
Right.
Or you're asked to do it by a special interest group in hopes that they have kind of the yes person in
Yeah.
mind, so they want to get that person in there to sway
Right.
things. And then I also think, I always wonder if, so I was talking to like the Freemasons, and we have the Elks, and it used to be way back when that organizations or groups or clubs were really important. So I kind of look at politics used to be kind of like that. It was like a group. They enjoyed kind of getting together and hanging out, even if they didn't always agree.
Right.
I think it was more civil because they all kind of enjoyed getting maybe away from the wives or something, so they would come here and have, they would have
I have
these.
no idea what you're talking
well,
about.
I'm just saying. I just always wonder
gentleman's
if that
club.
maybe if the change in the movement kind of away from these clubs has also changed the environment of politics as well, and who's actually being involved and why. I don't know. I just always thought that was kind of interesting.
No, I've never made that connection.
Yeah.
But in this day and age, and I'm glad that Dad got out. Well, Dad was gerrymandered out, so whatever.
Right. Yeah, he was.
I mean, he
Yeah.
was. They drew the line in his back door, and anyway,
no.
it was.
Yeah.
But before the social media storm came, because now you are so putting yourself out there.
Yeah.
On all levels.
Absolutely.
And the keyboard warriors. And it's just ugly. And I just would have hated to see,
Yeah.
Dad, because it hurts. It hurts.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
And I was just glad to not have to see
Running through
that.
the mud, yeah.
And in fact, as far as my time in the news, I was getting out as that was cranking up, and I'm so glad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because it's
gotta
so
have some thick
ugly.
skin.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure I got that what it takes to.
Because you'd have been, a member of the libtard media or whatever, like we are apparently
Yeah.
now. So,
Yeah.
and of course, you and your dad, and you were Democrats back when Democrats like actually were the party in Northeast
right.
Missouri.
You couldn't throw a rock and find a
Yeah,
Republican.
I mean, we'd go to Democrat days, and it'd be
Yeah,
packed, and
right.
you'd have, all the state reps, and you
Yeah.
had all these Missouri.
That flipped so fast.
It
was
really
crazy.
did, and it was. I think it was around 08, and it was like I said, I've always said that it was number one. It was the Tea Party was the big emphasis on the Republican side, but also I believed it was the election of Barack Obama as president.
Yeah.
Because I think there were a lot of Democrats who were uncomfortable with a black man being president, and Republicans too. Don't get me wrong.
Okay.
But yeah, I think that was one of the big drivers in Missouri flipping. That was just my uneducated guess, I guess. So.
I think it was just, again, kind of the extremists. I mean, I think the Democratic Party kind of switched their game somewhere along the way.
No
where
question
got
about
kind
it.
of Wild.
no question.
Both sides. I mean,
Both sides
yeah,
have
it
these
just kinda got
weird
wild.
extreme views.
Yeah.
The left and the right, both. You talk about the far extremes,
Yeah.
where one side doesn't know the difference between a boy and a girl, and one side wants to get in all your business
And
regardless.
the messaging, Republicans are much better at messaging,
Yeah.
I think, than the Democrats are.
Well, and I think it's
and
interesting to think that, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. Go ahead.
You didn't.
Okay.
No,
I
you're
think
fine.
it's interesting that, a lot of even some of the agendas or the special interest groups on both, they contradict each other in certain
Sure.
levels, but then also there are so many, so like Republicans, everything's drawn in the sand. It's like if you are a Republican, you have to believe this, and if you don't believe this,
You're a
then
rhino.
You're not, yeah.
You're a rhino.
And I'm like, why can't we have something that's a little, more flexible? Because not everyone is going to see all red all the time on every issue. It's like you guys are. I think both parties are kind of digging their own grave.
Yeah. So what's the solution?
Free thinking.
Yeah.
Free thinking 100%. And especially locally, and this is something that Brittany and Bob, we've all kind of talked about this ad nauseum, that, you know, party politics locally, I don't know how you feel. I'd love to get your input.
We
but
elected an independent mayor here.
Yeah,
I mean, I
party
know, yes, she
politics.
was a Democrat at one time, but still, she ran as an independent and won as an independent.
Yeah, but I think it's kind of, we're showing that it may not be as important, especially locally anymore. Have you seen that?
Hannibal we don't do parties.
Okay.
No.
Oh, I didn't know that.
No, but you've
Okay.
got the people behind the scenes who say so-and-so's a
Yeah.
liberal or
Yes.
whatever.
So, I mean, Christy Trevathan comes to mind.
Right.
You know, so when she ran, and she actually, I mean, talk about a good-hearted person.
Yeah.
She is a really good person.
I've heard her
and-
name a few times. Yeah.
Yeah. But that's what, you know, that was the dig against her.
Yeah.
She's a Democrat. And it really, on a local level,
Has no
doesn't
place.
much matter. It doesn't much matter.
No Republican Democrat way to fix a pothole.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And that's supposed to be why we don't have party affiliation in city government in Hannibal.
Right.
But
How did you guys accomplish it? Has it always been like that?
It's always
I
hasn't
guess,
it?
Really?
Ever
as long
since
as
we've
I've known
grown
it,
up,
but-
yeah.
Yeah.
So
I'm interested to see how our mayor-elect is.
Hannibal's been far more progressive. They had a female mayor long before Quincy did.
Yeah?
Lillian
I do-
Herman back in the 80s.
That's been a hot minute.
Really?
Mid 80s, yeah, when we were in high school.
Yeah.
She was the mayor of Hannibal.
Yeah.
How'd she do?
She won. She was the mayor of Hannibal.
good.
How'd she
I
do
don't
as
know.
mayor?
It was we were
I'm-
high school and college
wasn't
and
all
weren't
that
paying
politically
attention.
aware.
We weren't paying
Yeah, okay,
attention. And
okay,
actually, she lived in Monroe City. I live in Perry. We didn't live in Hannibal, so we just knew,
Gotcha.
oh, Hannibal's got a lady mayor. Great.
Gotcha,
But
gotcha.
we weren't paying attention to what they were doing.
Well, I'm excited.
We
I'm
weren't paying
excited.
attention to their tax rates or anything like that. It was like, could I get another Bud Light, please?
No, but you know, when you're sitting at home, or you're sitting around your friend's house or whatever you're doing, people are talking about things. I just wasn't sure. No, not that.
Not
Okay.
back then, no.
All right.
No. So, a lot of fun as always. Great seeing you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Thank you.
Yes,
And
yeah,
thank
your
you.
Reno mug.
Yes.
Yeah, we had those. I had those commissioned
nice.
for
They're really
our
cool.
25th
Those are nice.
anniversary. Aren't they nice?
Who did those?
Yeah. Well, who do you think? Well,
Airs.
of course.
Airs
Okay,
Airs.
yeah.
Yeah.
okay.
2025. It's brand
Very,
new.
very
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah. We
That's mine.
you
it's
know,
not.
we
on
laid
my
out a
desk.
bit of money for those. We thought, well, we could do pens or ice
Oh, this is
scrapers or
great.
chip clips.
People will use those, and they're beautiful.
Those are nice.
This is
Yes.
great.
They're fabulous.
All right, since she gave us a little payola, we'll continue to run her news releases.
Yes.
So
I
there you go.
appreciate
Absolutely.
I appreciate you guys doing that too. I really
Glad
do.
to do it.
It's
Like I
it
said, we
really
like
helps.
we like telling good stories, and sometimes we have to tell bad stories that we really
Yeah.
don't like to tell. But we
Right.
really like telling the good stories.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
Good.
100%.
Thank you. Thank you for what
Always
you
All
good
right.
seeing you.
All right. Thank
we'll
you.
see you later.